Thank you.
Jillian has some headlines for us. Good morning, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning to you guys. Let's begin with this story. The Hillary Clinton campaign, along with the Democratic National Committee, accused of a corrupt money scheme. A complaint filed with the Federal Election Commission alleges that $84 million were illegally funneled from the DNC through state party chapters and back to the Clinton campaign. The group behind the complaint claims they broke FEC campaign contribution rules. DNC officials have not yet returned our request for comment. We will keep you posted on that. All right, very vocal President Trump critic Rosie O'Donnell going off the rails, trying to stop the tax bill. The actress offering lawmakers $2 million to vote against it. Rosie going on a Twitter tirade, tweeting in part, quote, "So how about this? I promise to give $2 million to Senator Susan Collins and $2 million to Senator Jeff Flake if they vote no." Many on Twitter quick to point out those bribes would be illegal. She also told her followers to call 911. Okay, so a mom is sounding the alarm on a popular toy right before Christmas, claiming it gave her daughter chemical burns. She posted this photo on Facebook after she says her daughter got in the bath with a Hatchimal, is that what it's called? A Hatchimal, and was burning within seconds. I'm not up to date on these whole toys thing, you know. The toy company says they follow FDA guidelines, but are investigating what happened here. All right, so it's a record-breaking Christmas miracle. A 26-year-old Tennessee woman gives birth to a baby from a 24-year-old frozen embryo. Tina Gibson and her husband didn't think they'd be able to have kids until visiting an embryo donation center.
Just so you know, this is going to be a world record. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, it's been frozen for 24 and a half years. You know, we could have been best friends.
Little Emma Wren was conceived in 1992, the same year Tina was born. Isn't that crazy, guys?
That is something.
Insane, I know.
Who knew? All right. Jillian, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
That's
Jillian.
crazy. All right.
The best gift for them, I'm sure. Well, the holiday shopping season can add to financial woes if you don't plan ahead, right? A recent study shows 62% of Americans feel stressed about money. I'm surprised. I thought it'd be more than that.
So how can you reset and reach your financial goals for the new year?
The best-selling author of Retire Inspired, financial expert Chris Hogan joins us now with his tips. So we're moving into a new year. You want a fresh start. How do we start?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is understand most people, when they set resolutions, they don't follow through. Studies have shown 85% of people fall off within 30 to 45 days. So you need to understand it's going to be an uphill climb immediately. So you've got to make a decision. I tell people to follow my AAA process, you guys.
Okay.
Now follow me here.
All right.
First thing you want to do is assess where you are.
A.
Be brutally honest. Are you doing well in some areas? Are you struggling in some areas, right? And then once you make that assessment, what I want you to do is acknowledge, is better available? Can you start to do better at saving? Can you do better at starting to attack debt? And then once you acknowledge what can improve, then I want you to activate a plan of action. That means start to take steps that are going to put you in the right direction, but start small. Most people have this large goal, but they never have small incremental steps that they can take to be able to judge and gauge if they're making progress.
Is that why you say focus on one at a time?
One thing at a time. Listen, we are distracted in our culture today. We have things buzzing, ringing, and dinging all over the place.
Yes.
So if we can zero in and understand, if I'm going to attack debt, I'm going to get serious about the debt. Now, once I do that, or I'm going to focus on savings, then do that. Doing things one at a time, you're going to increase your probability of reaching that goal.
I know from your boss, Dave Ramsey, he has said many times that the number one reason people have marital problems or get divorced is over money. So you really have got to be on the same page.
You really do. I mean, and that's one of those where you start to put down kind of the disagreements and start to pick up where are you going to be together? Where are you in common? Where are you in sync? And if you start to move on those goals working together, you're going to make progress faster and you're not going to have money fights.
Because oftentimes he's a spender or a saver, and she's a spender or a saver. They're never on the same page. One is spending, the other is saving.
That's exactly right. And so looking at that, what you want to do is don't focus on how you're different. Focus on what you have in common, meaning you want what's best for your family. So if you can sit down and you start to work on the budget one night a week together, or you gain agreement on, hey, we're going to save and not spend, I guarantee you're going to start to move in that direction, and then you're going to feel better.
Those talks are always so much fun.
I know the sarcasm here. There's sarcasm
How
here.
do you do that without getting in a fight?
That's right. I've got the Visa bill right here. I've got some questions.
Great.
Well, and you start to keep score against each other. That's what you don't want to do. So have a dollar amount that you each can spend without anybody getting upset. Okay, I call
How
that
do you figure
blow
that
money.
amount?
So Yeah, how do you?
Well, you got to sit down and look at your budget. So if it makes sense for you to have $400 a month each, get that out in cash so there's no disagreements. So if you want to spend it going to the spa or you want to spend it at the sporting goods store, we've already gained agreement on it, so there can't be a fight.
So you talk about consider extreme money moves. So what if I want to spend my $400 on Bitcoin? Is that the way to do it? Go extreme?
I'm going to tell you no, okay? But if you want to waste it, you can. It's not a problem. Listen, I'm joking.
He bought
Kinda.
Bitcoin.
I
That's
know
why
he
he's
did. We've talked at the break. We're going to talk later. But here, extreme money moves are these. Maybe if you're both working outside of the home, you're going to agree to, hey, we're going to live on one income while we use the other to either save or attack debt. Now you're starting to gain agreement. Or if you have multiple cars, families have 3 and 4 cars these days, sell one of the cars. Use that money toward attacking debt. Or the biggest extreme move, downsize your home. Downsize where you're living if you have too much square footage and have some cheaper expenses overall. Now redirect that money toward financial progress.
If you want to figure out how much to put away for your 401k, he has a great website. You just plug in a few little numbers and he tells you every year how much you need to be putting aside so that you can live comfortably when you retire. What's
That's
your
right.
website?
That's called the RIQ, the Retire Inspired Quotient.
Yeah.
Free tool at my website, chrishogan360.com. Also, I want to let everyone know, if you want to set goals this year and get serious, I've got a new podcast episode called New Year, New You.
Fantastic.
New year,
well, thank you
new
very
you.
much.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chris.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right. Coming up on this Wednesday, the Senate just passed historic tax reform, and now it's up to the U.S. House to get it on the president's desk. 2 key players, House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senator Ted Cruz, are going to be with us in the next hour.
Colin Kaepernick cannot get hired as a quarterback because he throws too many interceptions, but he's trying to get back in the game as an owner. Hip-hop mogul Sean P. Diddy Combs is eyeing the Carolina Panthers after owner Jerry Richardson announced the team was for sale amid sexual harassment claims.
Kaepernick is backing the move, saying that he does want in.
Interesting. Here for reaction, former NFL Super Bowl champion and author of Liberalism or How to Turn Good Men into Whiners, Weenies, and Wimps, Burgess Owens. Burgess, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. Good to see you again,
Great
for
to see
sure.
you.
So what do you think about this idea that these guys might combine forces and buy a team?
Well, the first thing that came to mind is where have they been the last year or so? I mean, this is free market. They can get together to solve or to buy $1 billion corporation. How about getting together to solve the issues that we're dealing with in the black community? I mean, there's a lot of issues happening that their money can help out, their example, and more importantly, their idea that if I can do it, you can do it. And we're missing all that with the social justice game.
Well, Jerry Richardson built that team up. There was not an NFL team in the Carolinas. So he has the right to say no, right? If he doesn't agree with maybe the money is going to talk and he's going to want to sell no matter who it is.
Well, there's a couple things here. First of all, there's a lot of difference between rap and running an NFL team. And I understand. I mean, the guy's making a lot of money. That's what entertainers, they get very confident. But this is a business. And the way they're approaching their lives right now, and the way they've actually dipped and hurt the NFL, I don't think it's going to be a good business decision at all.
Would it be a good business decision for Puff Daddy to work with Colin Kaepernick? I mean, does that not create a recipe that's already controversial out the gates?
I think the key to this whole conversation, we're dealing with this talk now because of what's happened last year and a half. How about Puff Diddy, Kaepernick, Michael Jordan, all these guys get together. You know what? We have some things we can do for our community. We're making billions of dollars together. Let's make a difference. Let's go out and first of all, tell our kids, if I can do it, you can do it. We need to get away from this social stuff because I can do it, but you can't.
Well, there's a possibility that if they bought the team, they wouldn't inject their politics into it. He just wants a place to throw the ball.
Well, unfortunately, that's not proving true so far. He's actually where he is today because he couldn't keep his politics out of the game. These guys are very into what they're doing. They're social justice warriors. And unfortunately, that doesn't fit with the capitalist community we have now, particularly those who want to come and watch the game.
What you know
without
about
it.
the Carolinas, that's the Bible Belt. Do you think fans will still go to the game?
No, I don't. And those are decisions that the NFL has to make. It is a business decision. At the end of the day, they don't want to lose their numbers because of somebody who's just divisive.
Just, we're in week 15, I think, of the NFL. I mean, what's your takeaway so far about what this year has done to the brand?
This has been a sea change. I've never felt this way ever before about the game. I felt it's so difficult to mess up the NFL brand, and they've figured out a way to get it done. And I don't know if they'll ever get it back.
Are you heartbroken when you see those images of it's in the first quarter and a third of the seats are empty?
And see, because I've left the game so long, I'm heartbroken when I see all the misery going on in the black community and nobody's doing anything about it. 75% of black kids and black boys in California this year cannot read and write. And no one's talking about it. Nobody's trying to put income into it. We're talking about $1 billion investment in a team. So we've got to change that narrative.
Burgess,
point.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you, buddy.
Merry
Okay.
Christmas.
Merry
Thank you,
Christmas.
Focus on the
Merry
stuff that
Christmas.
matters. Great
Thank you,
message.
sir.
Appreciate
Thank you so
it.
much.
All right, well, a brand new threat from ISIS, as security's ramped up across the country, what we know coming up.
Plus, an inspiring new book tells the story of an unexpected Christmas gift. Oh, a sweet story. Just in time for the holidays, a new book shares an unexpected Christmas gift, a chance to reconcile with the past and learn lessons of grace and forgiveness, and a chance at love. With his own inspiring story, our next guest has over 2 decades of writing books that he hopes will help people find their own power within themselves. Joining us now is best-selling author of his new book. It's called The Noel Diary, Richard Paul Evans. Thank you so much for being with us. Congratulations on this new book.
Thank you.
So you've written a lot of books, The Christmas Box, The Walk. Many of them have been made into movies that we watch around the holiday season. Your wife read the book and said it was her favorite book. Why is that?
It did. And after she said that, she said, did it hurt to write?
Why'd she say that?
Because it was so autobiographical and some of it is painful. And she knew how much of it was true from my childhood.
All right, give me an example. What's the story?
A USA Today reporter is interviewing the best-selling author Jacob Churcher, who's the character in the book, and it's obviously autobiographical, and says, "Tell me a Christmas you'll never forget." And he talks about the Christmas his mother got mad at him and beat him, and then walked him out to the side of the road, packed a suitcase, walked him out, and said, "Go find someplace else to live." And he stood by the side of the road for 3 hours holding a suitcase. Well, that's true. That was me.
Your mom did that to you?
Yeah, she suffered from mental illness, and
God, that breaks my heart. We were just watching videos of Steve Ducey's kids coming down the stairs and getting presents, and your mom kicks you out. How old were you?
I was 11.
Wow, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well, no, I love my mother, and she's passed away now, but she needed help, and she didn't have it, and it was difficult. So that was my
So
childhood.
the story's about going home and reconciling.
It was about going home, yeah. It was about peeling back the layers of what was there and exposing it to light. And at first, it was really great for me to just kind of come out, say, this is me. This is I look like a best-selling author, but the truth is I have a lot of pain inside, and maybe that's where the books come from. But then I didn't think it would do well because of that. But then all of a sudden, people all around the country start pouring in with their stories.
Being real. I've realized in my career, too, just being real and being genuine, people can relate to that. I also wanted to ask you about your Tourette's. I know you've talked about having Tourette's and living with that. How do you overcome that, or how do you live with that?
Oh, I'm grateful for my Tourette's. It was hard when I was little. I had so many twitches and things, and but I wrote a book series called Michael Vey about a boy with Tourette's. That was a #1 bestseller, and I get to meet kids with Tourette's all around the country. I'm meeting one from London tomorrow, and I get back to Salt Lake, and it gives them hope. And what a great thing!
That's wonderful. God bless you. God really, he's just, he
God is
redeems
good.
everyone all the time. He is Richard Paul Evans, highest rated book on this. Out of all of his books, this is the highest one on Amazon. He's had some bestsellers, so thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank
Godspeed.
you.
It's called The Noel Diary if you want to get it. Coming up, we have House Speaker Paul Ryan, Senator Ted Cruz, Corey Lewandowski, and David Bossie. Look at that lineup. Stick around. If you're just waking up, the first major rewrite of the U.S. tax code in 31 years, clearing a major hurdle.
The ayes are 51, the nays are 48.
You know who's really excited about this?
Who?
The President of the United States. He tweeted this at 2 o'clock this morning.
The United States Senate just passed the biggest in history tax cut.
FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe was grilled for more than 7 hours.
You're talking about a lawyer whose wife took $700,000 from a Clinton crony, and he refused to recuse himself.
At least a dozen people are dead and 7 Americans are hurt following a tragic bus crash in Mexico.
A major publication alleging the Obama administration may have sabotaged its own government investigators' efforts to stop the Hezbollah terror group.
The Obama administration put everything secondary so that we didn't rock the boat with the Iranians because of the Iran deal.
And right here, this is when Santa left a letter in the Christmas tree where the kids were told that they could get a dog.
Hear the word snowflake. I used to think of Christmas.
No, that's all I
Now I think of
I'm
like
thinking
college
of the wrong
campuses
thing. I'm
with
like,
bubbles.
where are the liberals? Oh, okay.
Right.
Real snowflakes. But, we just talked about gifts under the tree.
Yeah.
Send us your
Yeah,
favorite
send us
gift you've ever gotten under the tree. Friends@foxnews.com. We've shared a few of ours. we want to know yours.
Indeed. In the meantime, President Trump got his big gift last night.
Yes, he did.
This is a Fox News alert. Cutting your taxes. The Senate making history, passing sweeping tax reform for the American people.
This, the first major rewrite of the tax code in 31 years, and we could be just hours away from a huge win for the Republican Party.
And for America. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington, D.C., where there's still a little bit of work left to be done before the president can sign the bill. Griff, good morning.
Good morning, guys. This is indeed headed to the president's desk within hours, many expect, but there is a little more work to be done. What happened was the Senate had to strike some provisions from the House bill so it would fit their budget rules, one of which included changing the title of the bill itself. But now the House is expected to vote again sometime around noon today on the new version, and it is expected to pass without issue. Thus, history was made when the Senate passed this straight down party lines, 51-48, shortly before 1 a.m. All Republicans for it, all Democrats against it. Afterwards, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying this strengthens America.
If you look at the last 8 years, America has consistently underperformed. Not 1 year at 3% growth, not one. That's not the best America can do. We're confident this will work, and we're prepared to take that argument to the American people.
Democrats slammed at Minority Leader Schumer, saying it's actually messing the country up.
83% of the middle class will either pay more in taxes or get little but crumbs. Is that what you intended? Is that this great bill that's helping the middle class? Absolutely not. This is serious stuff. We believe you're messing up America.
Well, here's a quick look at what this means. Now, 80% of Americans will receive a tax cut, according to the Tax Policy Center. It cuts that corporate rate, as we've heard, from 35% to 21%. It drops the top individual rate to 37%, and it repeals Obamacare's individual mandate. And if the House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Brady is right, guys, it means fatter paychecks in February. Democrats, by the way, intend to use this against Republicans in next year's elections. We'll see how that goes.
We will indeed. All right, Griff, thank you very much. Join us from his perch over the Capitol. The House has got to vote on it again later today because there was a snafu. They've apparently got a bunch of crazy rules in the Senate. And,
you think?
And this particular bill that the House passed didn't sync up with the Senate version. So under the Byrd rules and reconciliation, they're going to do it again.
Back to the House.
Yeah.
It'll likely be the same. Well, the president pointing out what a lot of people were thinking late last night. I think he tweeted at 1 or 2 in the morning.
He did.
Saying this. He said, the United States Senate just passed the biggest in history tax cut and reform bill. Terrible individual mandate from Obamacare repealed. Goes to the House tomorrow morning for final vote. If approved, there will be a news conference at the White House at approximately 1 p.m., which, of course, you can see here on the Fox News
So
channel.
in one fell swoop, he got the tax bill and the mandate, so you don't have to pay. If you don't want to pay for Obamacare, you don't have to pay into it, and you're not penalized. All in one vote.
It is a bigger corporate tax cut than either of the Bushes got during their presidencies. And he did it without losing a single Republican senator, which was key because over the last month or two, people have been going, okay, I don't know about Jeff Flake. I don't know about John McCain. I don't know about Susan Collins. In the end, they were all there. The lone exception was John McCain, who is out in Arizona for the Christmas holiday. He, of course, recovering from brain cancer surgery.
He said he would come back to D.C. if he had to, if
Didn't need
there
him.
was a tiebreaker.
President Trump also doing with unprecedented resistance from every quarter of this country, from the fake news media to never Trumpers to the Democrats to, as we've learned out more and more, his own intelligence services, the FBI and the DOJ. I mean, everyone has been out to get this guy. You would imagine Democrats may have voted for this if there was a President Jeb Bush, if it just was, a little bit more of a moderate guy, maybe they would have come on board. They were going to be against him no matter what. Still got the votes in the Senate and the House. This is politically significant, but much more importantly, our economy and our country. And American taxpayers will benefit from the fact of one simple principle. President Trump believes you should keep your money.
Right.
And it should not be held at the federal government to be told how to spend it. It's a basic principle that conservatives have stood for.
Can you tell
a
our
very long
local
time.
lawmakers that in these high tax states? Because we need more money in our pockets, and our taxes are not going to go down because our local taxes are so expensive in New York and New Jersey's and Connecticut.
Listen, I was watching one of the other news channels yesterday, and I was that bill scared me. Hearing what they said about how it's going to completely hurt the middle class and things like that. But I've read the bill, and you know what? I think it's a little disinformation.
One more point to make. The party of John F. Kennedy is dead. John F. Kennedy cut taxes from 91 to 65% for individuals. He cut the corporate tax rate. He cut it for the lowest income bracket as well. Not a single Democrat voted for this bill. Right. This is a party invested in tax and spend, invested in resistance. And I think if once they see the effects of this bill and what it could do for the economy, there may be some regrets, especially some of those senators in states that President Trump won overwhelmingly that are up for re-election.
Even if you live in one of the high tax states, you can still expect for more companies to open up here. That's more jobs, more money that goes back into our economy. The deficit goes down, hopefully, and people are spending more.
Sure. I mentioned at the top of this hour, President Trump got his Christmas wish. Somebody who was really happy. You saw him with the big gavel. Was Speaker Paul Ryan.
I noticed that, too. It was huge.
No kidding. He's going to be joining us in about 10 minutes, and we're going to talk to Senator Ted Cruz. He will be live in the next hour.
And we'll get some video of that gavel for you. There it is. Wait.
I mean, he hit it so hard that it fell off the table.
off.
Yeah. And so, liberals, of course, are pushing it out there, saying it's indicative of this bill that will hurt the American people. Or he was just really excited because he's been working.
There it is.
Watch this.
There
Boom!
it is.
Hammer
Shuts
time.
it down, and it's still, there you go.
If you were watching Brett Baer's show last night, he had a great live interview with Mitch McConnell, and it was news-breaking because he revealed that the government would not shut down over come the deadline at a minute after midnight on Saturday.
Government's going to run out of money.
So he said no to a government shutdown, and he said no, there will not be any DACA legislation done this year. Now, we're starting to put the pieces together. That makes sense because it turns out yesterday there was, over the last week actually, the chief of staff for the White House, John Kelly, has been meeting secretly with lawmakers.
He's been meeting behind closed doors to talk to senators about the border security bills. And he's saying, what do we need to do? We need more fencing. Let's talk about all this. Let's talk about DACA. Let's try to work together to come up with a package to fix for a legislative fix for the deferred action for childhood arrivals.
That's right. So Senator Jeff Flake tweeted this yesterday, who's been a fierce opponent of this president. He tweeted, bipartisan DACA bill will be on the Senate floor in January. And for those who believe in the Trump agenda, there's no one you'd want in the room more than John Kelly. Someone who is a believer in the wall, is a believer in the rule of law, who doesn't want to give away to illegals, who recognizes the complex environment of the Dreamer situation, but is not going to give away the farm without making sure there's real border investment as an exchange.
Well, and that's good. And so behind the scenes, there's some negotiating going on. You've got the administration saying, okay, we want a wall. And this is what we want. Bing, bing, bing,
bing,
and
bong, bing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, across the table, you got the Democrats and some Republicans saying, this is what we want.
Bing, 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 bong, bing.
We should play that sound. That's one of the best.
I think most Americans, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, probably most people, I would say, would think that the DACA kids should be allowed to stay in the country. I mean, how do you? It's not their fault that their parents broke the law and brought them over.
But don't do that without making sure that you have protocols so that it doesn't happen again. Something like chain migration, sure, the Dreamers should stay, but they shouldn't then be able to bring the next 25 people with them.
And Dreamers should be vetted. If they're here, they need to make sure.
And they have been. But at the same time, a lot of some of the terror attacks we've seen recently have come through chain migration. How do we be smart about that? So there's some great chips this administration has on the table to make a common sense deal, as you talked
There's
about.
There's a commercial that airs on Fox News. I don't know if it's just in the New York area, but it's like, this guy got in on chain migration, and so then he brought this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, and then that guy brought this guy and this guy, and then it's like a tree that just has branches, and you look and it zooms out, and it's all these hundreds of people that came in because of that one person.
And the president made it very clear in the last couple of weeks he would like to see the end of chain migration. So behind the scenes, stuff is going on regarding that. Meanwhile, it is 7-Eleven here in New York City, and Jillian's got the headline.
That's right. Good morning. Following breaking news, guys. So let's get you caught up, starting with this Fox News alert. At least a dozen people are dead and 7 Americans hurt following a tragic bus crash in Mexico. The tour bus flipping over, bringing cruise ship passengers to the Mayan ruins. Now, it's unclear what caused that crash, but a witness says there were swerve marks on the road. We do know a child is among the dead. 18 people are injured. Also breaking right now, ISIS threatening to launch bloody attacks on New Year's Eve. The brutal terror group circulating this disturbing propaganda poster with the message that says, quote, wait for us on your year parties, along with 2 heavily armed jihads. This chilling warning follows a similar threat showing Santa Claus next to a box of dynamite in New York's Times Square. New overnight, the capital of South Carolina becoming the first U.S. city to ban gun bump stocks. The Columbia City Council approving a measure making it illegal to use that device that can make guns fire more rounds in faster succession. Last month, Massachusetts became the first state to ban the devices. Bump stocks have been under much scrutiny since October, when a gunman used that device to murder 58 people on the Las Vegas Strip. That's a look at your headlines, guys, and I'm sure that's not the first that we're going to be hearing of that.
That's my hometown.
Yep.
That's the first city to do this, right?
Yeah.
All right, Jillian, thank you.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, the deputy director of the FBI grilled on the Hill over those anti-Trump texts sent from some high-ranking officials at the FBI. What went on behind closed doors, and why should President Trump keep Robert Mueller in place? Alan Dershowitz is live next.
And Sarah Huckabee Sanders is used to taking tough questions, but not usually like this.
I actually want to ask about UFOs. Several media reports this week disclosed that. Sorry.
I was going to say.
The House Intel Committee grilled FBI Director Andrew McCabe right there in the center of the screen for nearly 8 hours yesterday behind closed doors amid concerns of political bias within the FBI. This, as our next guest makes a case for why President Trump does not need to fire special counsel Robert Mueller over those collusion concerns. Here with more is longtime Democrat, Harvard Law professor emeritus, and the author of that book, Trumped Up. Alan Dershowitz joins us today from South Florida. Alan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You know, there are a lot of people on the political right who have said, you know, Robert Mueller, he's overstepped his boundaries. He's really got to go. You say absolutely not, right?
I don't think so. I think that if I were the Trump administration's advisor, I'm not. I want to be clear. I'm an analyst here, but I'm giving you my 50 years of experience. I would play the refs. I would keep the pressure on Mueller. Mueller is very concerned about his reputation. He has been accused of conflict of interest, of not getting warrants, of using an improper source for a warrant. They have him where they want him. He'll probably want to lean over backwards now to make any close calls in favor of Trump. So I think it would be now foolish to try to fire him, which would create a political scandal, probably a move toward impeachment, although there'd be no justification for that. They should leave it be. If they want to keep the pressure on, keep the pressure on.
Well, Alan, don't you think the Trump team, the people who are able to speak out on television and elsewhere, are playing the refs at this point, saying, hey, this guy's got some problems. He hasn't done his team any favors by having a bunch of people who appear to be partisan on his team?
And he's playing right into their hands. I have to tell you, I had an enormous amount of respect for Mueller, having seen him up close when he was in Boston and in the government. He's not playing this effectively. He's being sloppy. When you're going after the President of the United States, you make sure your personnel are not overtly biased against the target. You call them all in and you say, are there any emails? Are there any messages that are going to be embarrassing? Show me everything. Right. And then the FBI agent, he should have come in and volunteered when he was appointed and said, let me show you these messages. You may not want me. And then not getting a warrant for thousands and thousands of emails from the transition team. They may eventually win, but it is not a black and white issue. It's a close question. You wear belt and suspenders when you're going after the president. You get a warrant.
That's a good way to put it. Meanwhile, you told our producer you were really outraged this morning over this story from, I believe, Politico, that the Obama administration deliberately undercut efforts to take down a drug cartel linked to Hezbollah to keep the Iran deal alive, right? Quickly.
If this is true, number one, it shows that presidents do interfere with Justice Department decisions about who to go after. Number two, it shows how far Obama was willing to go to get this terrible deal that was so one-sided, that Congress opposed, that the American people opposed, and he's prepared to make this kind of deal with the devil to get it. Shame on him.
Yeah, no, if you're right, if the story is true. Alan Dershowitz, thank you very much for joining us today from Miami. Enjoy the weather down there.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate just passed historic tax reform. Now it's up to the House to get it to the president's desk. They got a little tweaking to do this morning. House Speaker Paul Ryan joins us live, coming up next. And we'll ask him about that gavel moment going viral. It's hammer time.
It is time now for your news by the numbers. First, one vote. That is all it took for Democrat Shelley Simmons to win her seat in the Virginia House of Delegates. The race was so close, they had to hold a recall. Next,
one vote? Yeah.
One vote. Nearly $500 million. That is how much is up for grabs in the Mega Millions and Powerball jackpots combined. The next Mega Millions drawing is on Friday, and the Powerball drawing is tonight. And finally, 2. That is how many times the Georgia Dome is now imploded. The second round of explosions going off overnight at the former home of the Atlanta Falcons. Crews needed to bring down those last remaining pieces after the original blast that we had live on our show last month.
That didn't really work. Yeah. All right, well, a Fox News alert. Overnight, the Senate making history, passing the first major tax rewrite in 31 years. Now, it's up to the House to revote on the bill and get it to the president's desk today.
Joining right now on a very busy morning on Capitol Hill is House Speaker Paul Ryan. Mr. Speaker, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Steve, Ainsley, Pete. What happened to Brian? Did he sleep in this morning?
You know, he's apparently out somewhere with his book.
Too much winning,
Mr. Speaker. Too much winning, exactly, just like you.
Too much winning.
Okay, so I saw you with the big hammer. I saw that it passed. So why do you have to redo it today?
Because we had such a good time yesterday, we just wanted to do it again today. You know? Look,
We love that. Go ahead.
There are these bizarre Senate rules. I won't go into the details other than there are these bizarre Senate rules, and a couple of small, tiny provisions dropped out because of these bizarre Senate rules. We didn't think they should have dropped out, but they did. It doesn't really materially affect the bill very much. And so we will revote and pass it out again today.
Mr. Speaker, I mean, you were the chair of the Budget Committee. You've been passionate about tax reform for your entire time in the House. What did it feel like to hold that gavel? And you slammed it. We all saw it, and so hard that you lost it. What did that moment feel like for you?
I got a little carried away. You can see that. I was very excited. It was a very emotional time because I used to be, Jack Kemp was my mentor, and I've been working on this issue pretty much my adult life because I just feel so passionately that this is going to help get people from welfare to work. It's going to get people higher wages, better jobs. It's going to put the American economy in the lead in the global economy again. So I feel very passionate about it. I was a little passionate. I scared the heck out of the parliamentarian sitting next to me. And I almost broke the thing, but I just got a little excited. Yeah.
So what is your message for the people who live in the high tax states? Because, listen, as Americans, it's going to be great for our country if you look at the numbers, if you read the bill. But for the folks who are watching us that do live in the high tax states, how can you promise them? I mean, we were told... President was, running. He said everyone's taxes are going to go down. People voted for him for that reason. But in the high tax states, because of the local and state tax, that's not necessarily the case. And a lot of those folks are middle class individuals.
Well, actually, if you actually run the numbers, Ainsley, and we've run a lot of numbers.
Okay.
The average taxpayer in every income group, including people in these high tax states, still get a tax cut.
Really?
Very high income people. Perhaps if they have a very clever accountant and are using lots of deductions, maybe they'll see it differently. But the average taxpayer in every income group gets a tax cut everywhere. I would just tell people, go to fairandsimple.gop. That's the website that explains how this all works. And we did make some changes in this bill, in the final version, to try and accommodate some of those concerns in the high tax states. Number one, all tax rates go down. The top rate and every rate in between are lowered. So you get lower rates across the board. Number two, we double the standard deduction. That means you go to you can see our postcard. I like to bring this thing up. Still, nearly 9 out of 10 people in America will be able to do their taxes on the form the size of a postcard because they'll take that standard deduction. But also, we maintained a $10,000 tax deduction, not just for property taxes, which was the House bill, but also for state, local income taxes. So you get to use that if you choose to do that, and the mortgage interest deduction is still largely maintained. So those things, in combination with doubling the child tax credit, lowering rates across the board, make just about every taxpayer whole. The vast, vast, vast majority of taxpayers. Is there somebody really wealthy with a good accountant that uses lots of deductions, and when we close loopholes, they lose some of those that may not see it that same way? Sure. But on average, everybody's going to benefit. The average tax cut for families, for your viewers, the median family of four in America is going to get a $2,059 tax cut. That's great. So that's real money for real people who are really struggling.
Indeed. Mr. Speaker, let me ask you about people in those high tax states. Some of the higher individuals with all those deductions and stuff might get a tax hike, but they would be few and far between, according to what you said. However, do you think ultimately the result of this tax cut bill is people in those high tax states, their state legislatures are going to have to do something about the high tax rate?
Yeah, that's the big argument, Steve, because, look, these numbers may not be exactly accurate, but what members of Congress, what conservatives see, is basically 46 states are paying higher federal taxes to subsidize higher state taxes in about 4 states. And so that's the point. It's really a fairness argument, which is, should states, people in states that have balanced budgets and limited governments and lean governments be paying higher federal taxes for those state governments that keep increasing taxes, keep increasing spending? And that's really the argument that's also at play here. And so that's a fair point.
Mr. Speaker, 50 years ago, a Democratic president cut income taxes from 91% to 65 in JFK. Yet yesterday, not
65 is still pretty high.
Still very high, but not a single Democrat voted for this yesterday. What does that say about the state of the Democratic Party? And also, will Republicans benefit in 2018 from this?
It's a really good question, Pete. Look, I'm a student of these things. I've studied these for years. Jack Kennedy, we don't have Jack Kennedy Democrats anymore. Jack Kennedy was saying, rising tide lifts all votes, cut tax rates across the board. It's going to help the economy. You do not have Democrats saying that anymore. So the progressive left have basically gripped their party. I honestly thought at the end of the day, we might get maybe a Joe Manchin or some of these Democrats in the Senate from these red states that Donald Trump won. They all stuck with the progressive hard left against tax relief and tax reform. So I do think this is not in their interest, not only just politically, but just economically speaking. And when people see their withholdings go down in February, when they see their tax cut, that's going to change the view of this, because it's going to give us better jobs, higher wages, bigger paychecks in a simplified system, and people are going to get their taxes cut. That's good for everybody, and I think they're going to regret not having supported it, at least some of them, I believe.
Okay, well, he's going to have the gavel in his hand again later on today.
And I'll try to be a little
We'll be watching. All right, Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. I know that had
You
to
bet.
feel
Merry
good.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Thanks.
All right, moving
I hope
on.
all the House members didn't leave to go home for their Christmas breaks, because they got to come back.
It's true, or they'd be coming back for sure. All right, former Attorney General Eric Holder calling it a red line if the president fires Bob Mueller. Well, maybe a red line they would enforce. Just one problem: the president says he's not going to fire him. Should Holder really be talking, to my point, about red lines?
Well.